we're all the collective. The title of my talk is I Am the Collective, the Primordial Collective. I had someone tell me that within this last year. And she said, this is coming through to me. You're the Primordial Collective. And I went, oh, that's fun. I'm going to go with that. Sounds pretty interesting. But I'm here because I love all things awareness. And those of you that have known me for some time know that that's a word that escapes my lips often, because I know that all we are is the awareness that we are. So I want to ask a question first. Have any of you heard of the red thread or the faded red thread? Okay, there's a few of you. We advertised, or I should say Ryan advertised, I was part of that, but sharing a few things, that we were going to have some magic here tonight, and I hope to bring that element of magic into my talk today. All right? The faded red thread. I asked this question: mystery, magic, or fate? Many of you might have heard of this. When you were an egg in your mother's womb when she was an egg in your grandmother's womb. How many of you have heard that? I'm probably going to ask a few questions tonight. All right, so a few more. We just picked up a few more. All right, so what? So what can we do about this information, and why does it even matter? All right. The red thread is the mother's line, feminine generational trauma playing out, which means if you have a mom, you have some feminine generational trauma playing out. The woman does whatever was done to her until she consciously feels she's kind of done with it. All right, time to make a change. So I was on a road trip about a month and a half ago, and left one morning knowing I needed to head out. The pull was calling me summer long. And finally, I headed out the first week of August. And as I hit the road, I didn't know which way I would go. I got to the freeway. All right, am I going north or south? Have any of you ever taken a spontaneous trip and literally went wherever the wind blew you? I see some head nods. This was one of maybe my second or third time doing this. I didn't know how long I'd be gone, but I also didn't know where I was going. I headed north, got as far as Boise, and Boise said, all right, east or west, and I was feeling west. So I went west, headed through Bend and down through these beautiful mountains and into the coast of Oregon. While I was on the coast of Oregon, I stayed in a hotel, and one night, happened to be a day or two after a dear friend of mine who is going through some somatic training, healing training, and she sent me a little clip, a little tiny video that was maybe 15 seconds long, and it was about the faded red thread. And I thought, this is interesting. Had a medium tell me that I was a product of the faded red thread about 4 or 5 years ago, and this was the first time it came back into my space, and I thought, I'm going to dive into this. So that night I kind of dove into it. And as I kind of was talking with my higher self, I guess, is kind of what I would say, a pattern and a theory or a formula started to play out. And I thought, can this be real? So I'm just going to introduce it and see, maybe some of you guys can jot down some notes, take some pictures, some slides, and go home and see if it might ring true for you as well. So the first step is you want to take the age of your grandmother when she carried your mom in the womb. My grandmother was 21 when she was pregnant with my mom. Then take the age of your mom when she mimicked your grandmother. So what I mean by that is, as I sat there that night, I replayed some of the patterns I knew that were coming down the line to me. And my mom started doing the same thing her mom did at age 30. Now, take your age when you became aware of the same patterns playing out. Now, here's how mine goes. My grandmother at age 21, she got pregnant with my mom out of wedlock, which we know if we go back more than 100 years, that was probably not a good thing to do, right? So I had to put myself in my grandmother's shoes. What would my grandmother probably have been feeling when she was pregnant with my mom? Maybe like, oh, I've done something wrong. So then My mom at age 30 was not pregnant with me, but she did one of the very similar things that my grandma had done at age 21. Okay. Now, fast forward to me, my age, when I became aware of these same patterns. At age 21, I started getting back pain. Well, in about 8 years into that back pain, it got so horrendous, I was really walking like a cripple. Like, people thought that I had cerebral palsy, and a lot of my friends here, I don't think anyone here knows what I was like back then. And at age 21, I took on this back pain, and it got worse and worse and worse for about 8 years. And at 8 years and seeing dozens of doctors, I finally decided to take it on myself. Every doctor wanted me on pain meds. It didn't resonate with me. And so I started reading. I started studying voraciously. I started looking into books about mental and emotional health. And why was I looking at mental and emotional health when it was a physical pain? I honestly didn't know, but that's what I was drawn to. So I started researching and reading and came across a book called Feelings Buried Alive Never Die. In that, I was able to zero in on sacroiliac joint pain, because all my pain was right in my sacrum. And with that, I was able to look up in a glossary in the back of that book, and it said, within the glossary, every thing or sensation or ailment that you could be having had a feeling attached to it. So I looked up this physical pain, and it said, feeling you're in the wrong relationship. Well, I did feel I was in the wrong relationship. So it rang completely true to me. I'd felt that way since the day I got married. And this was now at almost, I was 28, 29 when I found this book, and I was looking at it and going, wow, really? Can it be that easy? Is this belief causing this pain in my body? So how many of you have heard that physical elements express what's going on inside of you, your thoughts and your feelings and your emotions? Okay. Yeah, I knew I was speaking to a pretty conscious crowd. All right. So I was able to look at that, and then I thought back, and I was connecting all of these dots, and I thought, wow, well, my mom, I've heard her say she wished she had married a different gentleman, a man named Zeke. And so I thought, wow, that's weird, because when I got married, I started thinking, I wish I would have married so-and-so. And it was this ongoing story. Now, we've heard a lot of stories from different individuals tonight, and how important, especially Elena, how important is that story that you tell yourself over and over and over and over and over again? If it's not going to have the outcome that you want, you got to change your story. Well, I realized for the first time how debilitating this story was inside of my mind as I was replaying it nearly every day of my life. And my back pain was getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And so I found myself unconsciously bringing my unconscious conscious, okay? One day I'm walking through my kitchen, and I grab my sacrum, and I go, oh, there's a hitch in my kitch. And my husband looks at me and goes, I have never heard you say that before. And I go, yeah, that's what my mom always used to say. I sound like my mom right now. And in that moment, I had a flash of light, and I went, oh my gosh, my back pain is the same as my mom's. I don't know why I knew it so strongly, but I had no question. And then fast forward another year or so, and leaving a doctor's appointment that was another failed experience, I went, wow, I gotta find a solution to this, because I don't want to be walking with a cane like my grandma did when she was 50. And I went, wait a minute, is my grandma's back pain the same as my pain? I didn't know where these things were coming from, but I was actually listening to the words coming out of my mouth. And as I was listening to the words coming out of my mouth, I was becoming more and more aware. And so what happened here, this formula was, okay, my grandmother was 21. She did something that was wrong with a man, right? Then my mom was 30. She married my dad. And I knew she had 2 men that wanted to marry her, but she chose the head over the heart. And so she went on pining for the guy that had her heart for years and years and years. And my mom died with her back pain. My grandmother did too. And then here I was at nearly 30. When I finally connected all these dots at the age of 30, I sat down one night in my bedroom, and I thought, what do I do with this information? I was using this book, Feelings Buried Alive. She had a script. I was bringing it all together, and I went, wow, and like Sean just shared, he was resentful and angry, and I was so mad that all my 20s, my years of my 20s had just gone down the tube. I was not active. I couldn't barely move. Everything was painful. And finally I said, I got to wrap my arms around my 21-year-old self and thank her and just say, girl, you didn't know any better. You chose the head over the heart, just like your mom did. I was in a marriage. I wasn't happy. I was being betrayed. And all of these things were going down, and I was trying to hold it together with 4 little children. So this is where I'm going to move on to this next segment. So the faded red thread links the woman back all the way through, okay? Now, how many of you have heard of the term the Vesica Piscis? How many of you know what the Vesica Piscis is? It's the seed within the seed, okay? It's like some would call it the mustard seed, but it's created in the womb. And my name happens to equal the Vesica Piscis, the same gematria as the Vesica Piscis. Now, that's a measurement of, this would be the Vesica Piscis, looks like an almond. The measurement here is 153. Now, no phenomenon is a phenomenon until it's observed. The more I started paying attention to this, the more I started to expand in awareness and go, wow, something's happening. I'm not sure. Yeah, the spontaneous healing. The healing happened the night after I wrapped my arms around my 21-year-old self and said, thank you for making the decision that you made, and you did the best you could all those years ago. And so with that, I woke up the next morning pain-free. I've been pain-free ever since. And now, with this phenomenon, no phenomenon is a phenomenon until it is observed. As the more I observed what was going on in my body and in my life, I was expanding in awareness, and it was moving and bringing new insights and things into my life. Now, I love this quote from Spiros Michalakis. Oh my gosh, I can't speak. It's like a thread that goes through every single one of individual particles, telling them how to be connected to one another. So is the faded red thread just through the mom? Because now that we're talking about quantum entanglement, all right? And she's connecting and speaking about how when you observe a particle, it does its own thing. And yet, if there's a split particle, the one over here is always being affected. It's a push and pull experience. So if you look up on Google, you can search the faded red thread. I came up with this of Mr. and Mrs. Yi. These two jewels met and married and had this immediate connection and thought, wow, this is incredible. And then they were sharing one of their favorite places. They went on vacation when they were younger. And as they were sharing their pictures, they noticed that he was in her picture. They were in the same location on vacation years before they met. And then they were even in each other's picture. How interesting is that? Is that fate? Is it a mystery? Is it magic? You guys decide. So we know that with quantum entanglement, we have, it's often told through the story of twins, that if you share the same space and then you're split, then all of a sudden you'll still remain connected. There's stories of twins who've been adopted and lived their lives completely apart and still coming together and having the same names for their children or living the same career and those kinds of things. We are all connected. Why did I want to call this I am the collective? I am, you are, we are the collective. We're all connected, and it goes all the way back to the original womb. Now, for entwined, when two particles, years ago I was studying quantum entanglement, and as I did, I heard a voice say, Angie, you need to replace people everywhere it says particles, as I'm reading. And I thought, really? That's weird, but all right. So I started reading, and every time I came across particles, when you do this to one particle, the other particle will react. It was when you do this to one person, the other person will react. And I started to understand it about two people, okay? But when two particles interact, they become forever more entwined, no matter how far apart they are, even if separated by the distance of the universe. Years ago, when I heard my mom saying I should have married Zeke, that was in 2006 that I became aware of that, but it was in the 80s when I heard my mom saying that. You fast forward many years, all the way to 2018, I met this gentleman because energy pulled me towards him in a business meeting. And I thought, I've never felt this. I don't even know what this is. I'm telling you, it's the quantum entanglement. It's the faded red thread. But we pulled together. He asked me out 3 months later. And on my third date, I'm talking to him and I'm saying, I had this spontaneous healing. And he said, tell me about it. And I told him about it, mentioned my mom, mentioned Zeke. And he looked at me and he said, well, that is the most interesting story. And I said, why? And he goes, Angie, my dad's name is Zeke. So Zeke's son and I are now married. And through, which some people have mentioned, plant medicine, I've had a few more visitations from my mom, who's passed on. She was diagnosed with Alzheimer's the year I got the back pain. So I've never been able to talk to her through all of this, but she's passed on. And in one of my journeys, she came to me and she said, you need to understand the reason you two met. Me and Zeke were not meant to be. We were to create our soul contract was to create a pathway for you two to meet. So I wanted to bring a little magic, lighten it up. And I want you guys to know that every soul you come in contact with and every one that you feel a special draw to, I promise you, it goes beyond this life. How many of you believe in other timelines or lifetimes or that quantum field that I spoke of? That's what we're all living, and all the timelines are collapsing now. And we're connecting with those people in a much higher state of awareness.